Hello, everyone. This is episode number 14 with CEO and co-founder of Persana AI, Sriya Maram, who talks to us about how AI can automate workflows and make revenue teams more effective. This podcast is sponsored by the GTM AI Academy, your go-to resource for courses, live trainings, and playbooks of how to leverage AI in go-to-market teams and individual roles. You can find this episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, LinkedIn, and more. For more, go to gtmaiacademy.com.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. This is Coach K with the GTM AI podcast. I am so excited to have you on with me, Sriya Maram. Did I say your last name right? I didn't ask you before.
Sriya Maram.
Yeah, Sriya Maram. Beautiful name, by the way. So we connected on LinkedIn. Love what you're doing in AI. And so I was like, I have to have you on as a guest to talk about what you're doing. It's pretty unique. And so I want to make sure I have you on. So my first question, like always, is to tell me about you, kind of like a brief synopsis of your history and what kind of led you to doing what you do now and what do you do now?
Awesome. Thank you so much for the introduction. So hi, everyone. My name is Sriya. I'm a Bay Area native. I went to UC Davis and used to work at LinkedIn as a product manager. And I've always been interested in AI. I studied AI back in college. And what led me to start Persana was really drawing from my experience working at LinkedIn as a product manager and also building my own AI tools on the side. And really, I saw the immense potential for, not just the super technical folks in AI, but, being a PM, I was always working with no-code tools and automation tools. And I loved how much it felt like whenever I was using AI tools, I had superpowers and just saw this amazing new future where we'll have not just automation, but AI being able to help us and really give us those superpowers in some ways. So yeah, I started building Persana about a year ago with my co-founder, Rush. We did Y Combinator, which is one of the best startup accelerators in the world, and have been building Persana and growing our team since.
I love it. So when did you officially come out? A year ago? Is that what you said?
Yeah, about a year ago. Yep.
That's phenomenal. I love it.
Yeah.
So, okay, so I have some techie nerdy questions for you real fast. So in the AI world, there's obviously you can bolt on, or I should say plug into OpenAI or Claude or whatever OpenAI APIs that are out there, or you build your own model. Have you built your own? Are you plugging in? Tell me what you're doing.
Yeah, so our whole tool, I think the best way to visualize it, think of it like a Zapier for a sales team. So you can use whatever model works for you. You can use GPT-4, you can use Claude, you can use literally any model that you want to plug in. And not only the models, but really the whole value that we see with AI is combining that with different data sources. So whether you want to get data from your CRM, a company website, what technologies a company is using. So what we've really built with our tool is I believe that for each sort of specific task that you want to do, there will be obviously one model that performs better. So instead of restricting you to one model, we're like, use whichever model that you want to use. And I think that's when we're starting to already see patterns of, people are really liking Claude for writing, but GPT for more like summarization tasks and things like that. And yes, we have started building our own model based on our users and customers' needs on how they want to use our platform as well, to start giving recommendations as well.
So I'm curious because we've talked before and I've heard the concept, but one of the things you have on your website, the very first thing is the outbound. Tell me more about the outbound and how you're automating that flow, because you well know already that we have things like outreach and sales loft and these sequencing tools and blah, blah, blah. Tell me why the AI part of it becomes pretty cool when you add in these other tools and automation stuff. Tell me more about it.
Yeah. So I can tell you, you will see hundreds of tools saying, we will, you don't need SDRs anymore. They'll just totally take AI. We will send you like hundreds of thousands of emails per day to everyone in your total addressable market and things like that. Those results don't really work, and nor is it targeted as well. So the main thing with outbound or any sort of messaging you want to send, what was hard before? Say I'm reaching out to you. The number of different websites and data sources I need to go to personalize that outbound, a good AE or SDR already knows them, but it's not scalable, right? Going to 5 different websites, composing that message. It's not a skill issue, but it's more of a time issue, right? Being able to consolidate and do all of these. So what AI really helps us to do, and what we built with Persana as well, is that, hey, don't sacrifice that level of targeting and personalization that you want to do. Instead, tell us those workflows and we'll build them for you in Persona. That way, you're not sacrificing those like reply rates and that level of like human touch and personalization, and you're in control of it as well. You're not outsourcing it to someone outside of your team. You're learning different workflows and different ways to do outbound at scale without sacrificing that level of personalization that sounds human. I think I've got many these AI generated emails that do not sound anything remotely close to human. They're like, hey, Sriya, I saw you're an alumni of UC Davis. Here's my product. And I'm like, guys, come on. So that is not what our tool encourages you to do. We basically work with you. So if you're like, hey, this is a workflow I can do, can Persona help me scale that? And we'll have that ready for you.
So it's not obviously just limited to outbound. It could be literally any type of workflow inside of an org.
Yeah. So top workflows we've seen people do is like account research, getting that 360 prospect and company view. Another use case a lot of people love to do is inbound as well. They connect it like any of their like HubSpot forms and things like that. And lead scoring, that's another huge use case for us. And then obviously the outbound use case as well.
So which ones are you most excited about, or what are you excited about what's coming? I'm curious to see. You're in it every day, you see this stuff. What's the thing you're like, this is awesome? Like what gets you really juiced?
Yeah. What main thing is, I don't think we've been able to really capture buyer intent in an intelligent way yet. Because the data sources have been so fragmented and scattered. Like there's no single way to capture true buyer intent. But I think this is the exciting part with LLMs, right? Now you're able to have this machine that is ingesting, understanding, and learning. And this is what excites me. And even the whole thing about outbound and personalization, the best SDRs know that it starts with intent as the first signal. Hey, did someone change a job? Is this company hiring? Did they have a new product launch? And then that kickstarts their outbound. It's not really even about the messaging or those personalization. It really starts with that intent. And that's what I see the future of sales being, understanding truly what is that buyer intent for your product and being able to capture that and act on it as well.
Yeah, I see. And one thing you said before the call, and when I kind of tap into this, is like the whole concept of replacing salespeople versus augmenting, because I think that in the future, I see it's more about agents of whatever kind supplementing the tasks that needs to be done, but the human connection is all about the person. So tell me more about your theory is obviously running an AI tool. Where's the balance between what AI does versus what a human does?
Yeah, exactly. So any sort of like manual task, whether it's like, hey, I want to know what is the pricing of this company, that will take a couple of clicks, reading through, summarizing. That is something an AI should do. It should be your like kind of assistant, going, fetching this data, summarizing the data, giving you ideas, doing like a grammar check for your writing, things like that. That's what an AI should be doing. But the mind behind the AI, the person setting up these workflows should be you. Like, no matter how much, like the AI doesn't know your buyers, the AI doesn't know these workflows that have worked for you for years. The AI doesn't know the language, the intent signals really. So it's up to you to set up those workflows. And I think that's where a bit of the learning curve is as well, right? Like AI, I think a lot of people seem to think it's just, hey, AI should be able to do everything for me. I think that's totally wrong. It is how you work with AI. And I'm sure, like I've seen it in your podcast as well. It's so much about how can you intelligently prompt engineer and work with the AI as well. And I think there's going to be a new set of skills, right? We're going to leave the manual tasks and, the boring stuff to the AI to do. But the new set of skills is, okay, now that I have all this done, how can I get these AI workflows set up and done? So I do see, even when, I get on hundreds of demo calls and work with so many people, and they're always like, oh, this seems to have such a learning curve. But I tell them like, hey, you are going to be ahead of the curve if you learn this, because I'm telling you, we're already seeing it happen, but in, the next year or so, I truly believe companies are going to be like, hey, show me how well you can prompt engineer. not just for the engineers, right? It's if you're a marketer,
Yep.
if you're a salesperson, HR, that's gonna be a core skill. So why don't you get ahead of that curve and we'll work with you. And once you set up that workflow, imagine that being scaled to your whole team, right? Like
Yeah.
you will be the one that they're gonna be like, oh man, they're the master at this. So I tell people like either get ahead of the curve now, or I'm sure we're gonna be on a call in a year and you're gonna be like, hey, I should have learned this back then.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard the interview that Sam Altman had with Lex Friedman just a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
They talked about how we should be asking the question around replacing jobs, but more about replacing tasks and identifying the 5-minute task, 5-hour task, 5-day
yeah,
task. And like when you put it in that context, some jobs are definitely task oriented, some are not. And identifying and separating your job from task, I think is pretty crucial. And then one of the
yeah,
points that you said was that I do think that people do need to know how to actually talk and prompt engineer. I also see a world where it's going to be coming to a point where the true prompt engineer is going to be in the back end, and me in enablement, like where I'm all about how do I make it easier
yeah,
for the person to be able to use this, which is all about
exactly.
like clicking a button and saying, research
Yeah,
this for me. In the background's a cool prompt, but the button itself is research and it just
exactly.
pops it out. So there's going to be, I think, this dividing line between the true prompt experts and then or even automation workflow experts, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Like I've seen random YouTube videos we use like Zapier, for example, and they're going through these
yeah,
automation workflows. I'm like, this is mind blowing, but you don't
yeah.
know that you can do that unless you know you can do that.
Yeah,
So
exactly. So I think that's what excites me too. To be building a product where honestly, most of the time I'm learning from my customers and my
yeah,
users. They're telling use cases for me, apart from what I've shared with you, like even like niche ways, like each company is so different. They have so many nifty ways to target and experiment and personalize. So I love that when people come to me with use cases and hey, we can actually do this and this. And I was like, amazing. And what's great is like what we're starting to do now as well. And exactly to your point, there is going to be the experts that prompt engineer. And we're
right,
actually already, partnering and building this whole Persona Pros program where these are going to be the experts basically making templates because,
yeah,
they're super deep into it. They love to do it. And, they're bringing all these ideas. And the great part about like building a technology platform is that you can scale it and things can
yep,
be templatized. So that same thing you said where you're like, hey, research this website, behind it is the full prompt. I think that user experience and those workflows, just that's the next step for us. I think just making it as easy as possible while giving the experts that flexibility, like giving that balance of, hey, for the newbie, it's totally easy to use. But then once
totally.
you're down that rabbit hole, there's always more you can build and learn.
So I have two questions now popping up, and we're talking about AI and automation because I think a lot of people know the power of AI, but they have not experienced automation when you plug in AI, it's like freaking awesome. So two
Yeah.
questions. First one is if someone, okay, how does someone know where to start automating AI? That's the first question. Like when you go into somewhere and they're like, we're new to this, we have no idea what we're doing. How do you help teach them? Here's where you could use automation to this fullest power. How do you help them
Mhm.
understand?
Yeah, I think it always just starts off with what are you currently doing right now? What is your current process? I mean, for us in my discovery calls, I'm like, what are the data sources that are important for you? Like,
Yeah,
where are you researching your leads? Where are you getting your information? And then most of the time, we already have those within Persona through integrations and our partnerships. So then we tell them, hey, this is how we call them enrichments. So you have a
yeah,
list, run an enrichment here. And I think what's really differentiates us as well is that I tell them, hey, you're probably already using Chat GPT, right? What is that information
right.
you're feeding it? And with Persona, once you just set up the prompt, you can just run it for hundreds of companies at once. So I think it just
Yes.
really starts with what is your existing process? And I think this is something where, at least my approach to it, is that we don't want to replace your existing workflow. I don't want to say, don't use sales nav, don't do your research, don't use
Right.
your CRM. I'm not trying to do that. I want to say, where in your existing process can we bring it all together or make it easier?
So would you agree with the statement of saying process before the tool then? Because it sounds like if you don't really know what your process is, it'd be really hard to automate it. Yeah.
100%. I get a lot of people who, if you are a expert SDR, they like instantly see the value, like expert RevOps, and they already know
Right.
these workflows. But if you are someone who's just starting off, you yourself don't know your sales process, sometimes it's a little hard for them to like understand and see how to bring the pieces together. But I think the value there is that they can experiment faster too. So that's how I position it for them. Hey, you don't know this, but now you can experiment and see faster what's working for you to reach your ICP.
Yeah. Curious. And I don't know if you have a hopefully simple example, but give me one. I mean, a lot of people talk about, let's just say research for now. So could you walk
Mhm.
me through a standard process that you're like, we can easily automate this entire thing? So the only thing the person has to do is this one thing and the rest of it's taken care of. Kind of walk me
Yeah.
through what's a normal automation as an example and help us
Yeah.
understand why it's powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. So for example, like we just had this company the other day and they're reaching out to like recently funded AI companies. So someone on their team pulled together a list of 100 companies and then they're like, hey, can Persona help me here? This is my value prop. This is just like a starter list for me. What can I do from here? So
Yeah.
within Persona, you can find the decision makers, not just by role, but you can even go deeper, such as I want to find software engineers from these companies who worked at Google or something, because
Mhm.
I used to work at Google and that'll be easier for me to reach out. So
Right.
that's one thing, finding the decision makers, those intent signals, and then being like, okay, now I found the people at this company, doing that research about that company. Has this company had a latest product launch? What is the pricing of this company? Does this company have an international presence? All those questions that you would ask from a company's like website, or we've even had some customers use the like 10K forms and things like that. All that research that already exists where your SDR or AE would need to go zoom in, summarize, try to make sense of it.
Mhm.
Our AI can help you there. So they only wanted to reach out to AI companies which had, which were priced over $1,000 or something, because that was, their ICP. So instead of
Got it.
going and compiling the pricing, they literally just had to ask our agent to be like, do any of these companies have pricing over $1,000? And this was for like a list of 500 companies. And just in a couple of minutes, the AI was able to just give that yes or no answer. And they were able to cut down their target list and niche down from there as well. And
That's cool.
not just the AI, but also combining it with the traditional data sources as well, right? Like valid work emails
Right.
and, profile information, things like that. So we're not leaving those behind. We're just augmenting it and adding on to that experience.
So what was the difference before and after then? Like what was time, results? Tell me the difference before and after.
Yeah. So this company, I mean, for them to go through, this was a project they were going to give to their like SDR agency,
Right.
small startup. They literally were going to outsource it. And that company quoted them 3 weeks to be able to do that with a team of 10. They're, finding them leads and all that stuff.
Right.
And with Persona, we were able to get the workflow was set up in, through the call and everything in 15, 20 minutes for them. And now they were able to use that workflow almost every day. So you can just think about the time and cost saved. And also, I think it was a matter of instead of them having to do it elsewhere and trusting other people, they really like just being able to dig in deep on their own. And now they're the ones coming to us with new use cases. They're like, hey,
Yeah.
how about can we try this
Can we
in
do
this
this? Can
way?
we, yeah, can we do this?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I was like, oh my God, this is exciting. But I think that's the one
Yeah.
thing. I think that hesitation is usually there. We're like, okay, like how do I make sense of it? So I'm always just like, what are you trying to do? And more likely than not, we can probably achieve this already. And all our experts are always there to help as well, setting up those workflows and that education aspect of it. I think people are
Yeah.
keen to learn, they just don't know where.
They just don't know even what's possible, right? They don't know, they don't know.
Exactly.
Okay, I have two more questions for you, which the first one is what can, or I should, what in your mind, now you're on the other side of the extreme of automating and AI to as much things as you can, what should not be automated or not have AI driven to it, in your opinion?
Yeah. If you are someone that's, whether it's coding, whether it's sales, marketing, if there is no human in the loop at all, I would just say go with caution. I know that's the future that a lot of AI promises, but truth be told, it is not there. AI still, I think people think that AI can't make mistakes. Whatever AI says is true,
It's
all
that,
that
yeah.
stuff.
Mhm.
I'll tell you, even any of the foundational model, anything still has hallucinations. It
Right.
still is spewing wrong information with the utmost confidence. So I would just say err with caution towards anything that promises full AI without you in the loop. And I know platforms who say this and it's literally, they do have a team double checking. So even if they're promising you that, I would just say, just check it out for yourself and make sure that it truly is something that you're aligning with as well, and scales for your team, right? Like maybe
Right.
it'll work in the initial, if you're scaling your team, is it a process? Is it a platform that works as you will grow as well? And the security aspect of it as well, to really keep that
Totally.
in mind.
So I may have a couple more questions. We'll see how it goes. But the
Yeah,
first question is, I was going to ask you is thinking larger than just your company,
yeah,
as a founder of an AI company, what are you excited for? What's getting you like really juiced about what's next?
yeah. I think a couple things. So one is this concept of, I feel like I know the world has seen the generative AI revolution, right? Hey, I will put in a prompt and I'll get a blog post, I'll get an essay or something like that. It's like taking a prompt and generating a bunch of text.
Mhm.
And this has been my thesis since, since I started Persona. It's this concept of synth AI or synthesis AI, where
Ah,
you're bringing together information from different sources and getting new insights that weren't possible before. So
cool.
the AI is learning and training from existing like first party, third party data sources. So I think companies that are doing that, it's really exciting. And especially as we get, as you mentioned, like more task specific, we're already
Yeah,
starting to see companies get really good at a legal tech model, that's going to be really good at understanding cases, a coding model that's really good at helping with code, things like that. So I think that's the future we're going to see, where certain models, and that's what companies are working towards as well. It's just going to get really good at specific things in niche industries as well.
so now I got to ask the question, how are you with synth AI you were talking about? How are you thinking that Persona will be implementing that kind of thing?
Yeah, so I think that's where right now we are enabling, people to use AI with data sources, right?
Yeah.
Combining like the Zapier for sales, you can bring in the different data sources, use AI on them. And the next phase, as mentioned, we are building that buyer intent and being able to give recommendations, right? Because we're
That's cool.
starting to understand, hey, if you're a security company, these are recommended workflows for you, because we've seen that drive results.
I love it. So I got to ask the last question, which is why the name it Persona?
Yeah. So I mean, a couple of different things. I think we always hear the terms of like personalized and bringing the person into sales. So it's like persona AI, just thought of, sales persona. So that's kind of why we kind of brought the name together.
I was just curious because Persona is PRSO, you have
Oh, and yeah.
PRSANA. Yeah. Is there a reason for
Yeah.
the ANA?
And I think it just rolled off better. And
I love it. Cool.
I'll tell you the real story. So I gave you the fake story, I tell everyone, but since
All
we're
right. Oh
friends,
yeah.
I'll tell you the real story.
Oh, tell me the
So
story. Yeah.
our office is right next to the Asana office, and we were dying for different names. And I was like, what name should we use? And I saw their logo. I was like, okay, Persona. That sounds great. Fits with the sales story mold. So yeah.
I love it. I think it's funny.
I think if you ask any startup founder, they'll most likely give you a related story. Like even Stripe has a story, and the real story is something totally different because they're trying to find a domain that's still available.
It's still available, or it's some weird drunken story. Well, the
Yeah,
actual truth is, I
yeah,
lost a bet to a friend, and so, anyways, yeah,
yeah.
it's just funny. Well, Sriya, it's been a pleasure having you. I have Persona PERSANA.ai is your website.
Persona
I'll
AI.
put it,
Yes,
I'll put it in the show notes in case you're listening to audio. Just make sure people get it.
yes,
But a pleasure talking to you, and I'm really excited to see what you're doing. I might just have to get a license myself and try some things out because now I'm super
yes.
curious.
Excited.
But for those listening, I'll have also a demo in the GTM AI tools demo library you can watch for other stuff, which I'm really excited for as well. And besides that, just thank you. Any last words you want to leave with the group?
No, thank you. I think, people like you and the listeners of podcasts like this, you guys are really going to be ahead of the curve. So just to everyone else, say just soak in all the information, learn, and, either you learn now or you learn later. So I'm excited for this new journey that we're all taking together.
I love it. Well, I'm excited to see you guys pull around the next year. All the stuff you're talking about it's awesome. So I'm really proud of you and congrats. That's great.
Thank you
So
so
until
much.
next time, thank you so much, my dear. And we'll talk
Thank
soon.
you.
Thanks for listening to the GTM AI podcast. Please follow, subscribe, like, comment, and come back for more.